So my name is Robbert Snep. I'm an ecologist, senior researcher in green cities. I work for 23 years in greening cities, both from a scientific point of view as well as from a more practical point of view. I like to be like to support practice with evidence, and also to learn from practice for more research. And I work at Wageningen University Research. At one of the applied research institutes, which is Wageningen Environmental Research. It's all about the environment and also how cities deal with that. So this is my PowerPoint. Then I think it's good to notice that we are talking about the Anthropocene, about the area where people really rule the world, but and we have more people in cities than elsewhere. We are coming a long way, and our origin is much longer. You can see it here, and if we then look to the time that we live in cities, you see this small red bar there, and this is the time that we live in nature.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
To see that. Yes, something wrong? It's interesting to see that we really developed in nature, and now we live in cities. So if we look to nature, it's nature is the kind of surrounding, the context, the physical, the mental context where we thrive in. So there are all kinds of benefits that nature provides, and also the way that we are in contact with nature. That's how we developed, how we grew up, and that's also why, if we talk about nature or natural state, there's a nice link with the ideal mental and physical conditions that humans really perceive. So I think this is something that we sometimes tend to forget if we live in cities, but this is where we come from. So there is a link between nature and our health, for example. So on the left you see the health, you see the nature, and on the right you see the health, and then you see there are some benefits that are direct, like the air quality and also the stress. But also, and sometimes you really have to interact with nature to get the benefits, like the physical activities, the social contacts. So this is really a kind of summary. There are many errors here. There's lots more to tell, all kinds of conditions under which those benefits will come to you. But it's good to understand that there is a link between the nature and the health of people. And this started, this idea of nature that can help you with your health. It started already decades ago with this very well-known research, which we know by looking to nature, to green, which we recover much faster and much better than without nature as a view. This was decades ago. There's new research really is more into the brain, and also how people exactly interact visually with nature. So there's much more to tell about the relation between how we perceive nature than we used to know decades ago. And this is also why, let's say, this green view is still appreciated by many people. So this is a kind of another overview of all kinds of benefits in terms of health that people get from nature. And it's all those figures are linked to scientific papers. There is much more to tell, but it's only showing, illustrating that we have many benefits, but also all different kinds of benefits from nature related to health. And if you know that, you could say, if we have cities, why not green them? Because it's much, it gives you lots of benefits. And that's, of course, interesting to know, but also space is limited in cities, and it's much better to have a better understanding what exactly makes this green to deliver the benefits. So if we talk, for example, on heat or other climate issues, it's good to go in depth and figure out how it works, and then figure out what to do. So of course you can do this during a heat wave, and that may help a little bit, but it's insufficient, and we need to do much more. So, and then we talk, for example, on thermal comfort. How do people perceive heat? And it's not only the temperature, but it's also the humidity, the speed of the wind, and radiation, and there's also much other factors that are related to how you as a person perceive the heat. So at the moment, you know that. It's interesting to see what green can offer in that perspective. And here you see a picture of a tree in a garden, and you can see a little bit of sunlight in the background. And then you can see also a thermal image, and then you can see that the places where the sun touches the surface there, it's really hot, and underneath the tree, it's much more shady, and therefore it's also much more cooler there. And that this is because the green is dealing with the sunlight in a different way, but also because urban green is a kind of water machine. Now, I will not go into all the details, but as you can see, and you probably also know that the trees are collecting the water during the rain. They transport it to the soil. They take it up with their roots and bring it back, and then they start to evaporate it. So it's really, they are really interacting with the water, and by doing that, they make sure that they deal with the sun in a different way than, for example, the concrete or the glass is doing. And if you know that and you start studying that in more detail, then you can exactly figure out what is the contribution of the urban green to, for example, the thermal comfort. And if you know that and you know how the thermal comfort works, you can see that on a warm day, there is not a moderate heat stress, but there's no thermal heat stress. And even on a hot day, it's only slight instead of strong. And this is exactly what we need. We really need places to cool down. We don't need an average temperature in a city district of 1 or 2 degrees lower than normal. That's also what green is doing. But what we really need cool spots, places where people can really cool down, like they do right now in the United States, where it's pretty hot. Really, you need this place which is much cooler than the surrounding area. And this is what trees can offer. And not only trees, there's only green roofs that can make a contribution, but also there you have to make sure that the green roof is acting like a water machine. And this is often neglected if we have the standard sedum green roofs. So there are new types of green roofs where they have the soil, the water separated from the soil, and they make sure that the water can still go back to the soil with specific fibers, and then make sure that there can be evaporation. And if you have this thermal image, you can see that on this roof, which is an experimental green roof, there are certain spots which are blue, which are cool, and this is because this specific green roof type is constructed on those locations, and therefore it's cooling much more than other areas. And here also you can see it's 3 times more effective than the standard green roof, which makes that, let's say, during a heat wave, a standard green roof will cool only a couple of days maximum, and then such a roof can cool for weeks. So it's good to know that, and also to make sure that there's also the opportunity to get a new water back to the roof, to collect the water in another place. But it's interesting how this engineering of nature-based solutions, like we call them, how this works. Not only with roofs, also with the green walls. You see all kinds of different walls, and you can see, and this was also studied, that there is are all kinds of benefits, beneficial mechanisms behind the function of a green wall. And here you can see also a thermal image, and there you can see what is the impact of a green wall on the temperature. And we can see the building there with a green wall, which is much cooler than the surrounding buildings. Here, this is close to where I live in Eindhoven at the high-tech campus, the place where the CD-ROM was invented decades ago. And here you can see this is a parking place, and it's really it's cooled by those green climbing plants there. This picture was taken a couple of weeks ago. This is in Dutch, unfortunately, for most of you, but at least it shows that from this type of knowledge, we construct guidelines for urban planning and urban design, how to deal with the green in such a way that we can have sufficient cooling in streets, for example. And also, if we talk about those street trees, it's good to figure out that you have the regular street tree. There's just a tree in the ground living there. In the Netherlands, they get about 40 years old, but they can be 400 years old, but the way they are treated, that they will not become much older. And then there's also the trees that we get a little bit more, which are including a rain garden, so the water can infiltrate there on that specific place. So if we can call the one tree, we can call a no-tech tree, then this it can be called a low-tech tree, and then it makes you think, are there also things like high-tech trees? Yes, there are. And these are trees that are really engineered with retention, irrigation systems, sensoring, and make sure that those trees really deliver those benefits that we need at a certain moment. And here, of course, those trees are much more expensive, but also there are much more benefits that they can offer. And if you talk about heat waves, we really need those benefits. And especially those places where we have a limited space, where there's only a little bit of space for urban green, it's good to figure out what type of green do we offer there. And is this the green really doing something, providing the benefits that we would like to have from the tree. And this is a paper we published in December last year, and we really show that depending on the situation, you can go for a low-tech or no-tech or high-tech solution, because it's really, often people say we want a little bit of green, and they don't dig into the conditions that the green needs to really provide the benefits. And this is why we need sometimes a little bit more of technology in some places. This is also in Dutch, but it shows that we have also, in terms of tree species, there's a lot of knowledge on the different aspects, not only on the general characteristics, the size, and if they can deal with the winter cold and are they drought tolerant, but also if they can really make a contribution to climate adaptation, for example. So this is of one of my colleagues who really put a list together of about 100 trees. That they, for each tree, it is listed what are benefits and how large are those benefits. So if we know this, we can see that designers, for example, they come up with all kinds of nice green solutions. They come up with buildings that are very green, but we always think, what is the added value of the green over there? And then if you ask those designers, they have a clue, but they have a limited clue, and they need more knowledge to really make what we call functional green. Functional green, which is more than only ornamental green. Here you can see also, it's a nice picture, it looks nice, but this is what happens during the urban planning process. And then you get something that is not really providing any benefit. So it can be done in a different way, and it's good also to know that if you really do the planning and the construction in the right way, you can make such a, you make sure that there is a water system, for example, in this place. And then it can really be transformed into an urban oasis and a really nice green place. This is the railway station in Amsterdam. And it really has an impact, not only on climate adaptation, but also on health, on criminality, but also on the business. In this case, it's the business of restaurants and hotels. So things really go well in a green environment. And even those places that are very stony can be transformed into green oases that really people appreciate. And this is another one. This one this one, I did a PhD in greening of business sites. So I said this place could be different like this, and the cars can be parked just 20 meters away in another parking lot. And then you have a really nice lunch garden there, and those business people haven't had any clue about this. And when I show them this, they really start to turn the place into a green oasis. So it's interesting to see that if you show them what to do, sometimes companies in this case, but also municipalities are able to really make it happen. Well, I'm in a couple of projects as Wageningen. We are involved in a whole network with all kinds of cities, including also Alphen aan den Rijn. And we are working all kinds of cases where we support the local municipality and to really implement the green in a functional way. Here you can see some of the pilot areas, which are illustrated in a really nice way, very green, very nice people there. But often you have to dig into really the project to figure out if it will become a real green functional green place. So this is one of those places where people, it's also about flat buildings in the back, really a high density building with more than 500 people packed out. That is really, for Dutch standards, it's quite a lot. And then even we want, for example, ecology there. And then we have the owner that says, what would residents like there? And then we have the ecologist that said, I like to have those target species here. And the designer that says, how can I combine all those ideas with all the other things that I have to do in this public space? And then, so they come up with all kinds of nice visualizations. But I say it looks nice, but does it really provide the benefits? So there we dig into all the different planning phases. And we can see at the left, it's the first ideas, and then it comes to the right. And this is a map where you can see the kind of reservation for the space of all the different functions in the area. And then we really start, and it's in Dutch, unfortunately, but we really start to discuss with the project leaders and the ecologists and the designers how much, for what type of green is needed on what place to make it really happen in terms of ecology and also related to climate and to health purposes. Well, sometimes the idea is not only on a small scale, but also even on a larger scale, that they really want large residential, new residential areas to become really green. And then it's good to understand how can you make this happen. And I say, if you want functional green, it demands transitions in the way we deal with urban planning and development. And one important other transition that the urban greening is yeah, I think also depending on is illustrated here. This is also in Amsterdam. This is a typical street in Amsterdam where you have a road, you have a parking lot, you have two sideways, and oops, there's also a little bit place for an urban tree. And this is a typical road. And then if you would turn your head 180 degrees, you look to the other side and you see this. And this is a street where you have only a small sidewalk and a lot of green. And this is because they put the cars out of the residential area. They put it in a different place, and people can really enjoy the area surrounding the houses, and it's becoming a play area, it's becoming a place to meet people, and it's not dominated by cars anymore. But this demands transition in mobility, and at more and more places in the Netherlands, we start to this type of transition. Well, and this is Utrecht, where they also figured out what type of green is needed on what scale level. So it's in Dutch, but I think the illustration is clear. So it starts from the house on the left, and then every couple of 100 meters more, we want another function, another green function. We want green surrounding houses. We want green in a direct neighborhood and also on a larger distance. And they really calculated the number of hectares, the surface that they need for that. And then we told them, and it's in Dutch here, but I can tell you what type of benefits in terms of urban green are linked with that. We're not, it says here biodiversity, nature, but also for health we did it, and for climate adaptation. We really show them what is what type of green on what scale level can support what type of benefits. and also what type of green in terms of trees, or like you can see on the right side, it's green on buildings, so also green roofs and other things. How does this provide any functionality in terms of benefits? And also here we show them what type of green can offer what type of benefits, and this really support the city to figure out what is the best strategy, what is the best way of greening this area, for example, certain streets, to have what kind of benefits in terms of health, climate, or biodiversity. There's much more knowledge that we have in the Netherlands. It's in Dutch, but this is, for example, it's a checklist that supports building companies, if they have a building, what to do for wildlife. So you can really have your building and figure out if you have a roof or you have a certain wall, how can it include certain certain measures for nature inclusiveness. And also here in Amsterdam, they also have all kinds of ideas how to do that, and they come up with all kinds of guidelines. We have more and more information that we share with, we collaborate with the urban designers, with the urban developers, on a national level, on a more local level, together, of course, with the municipalities, but also with the landscaping companies. And by collaborating with each other, we start to learn more and more. Here you see a landscape architect, Michael Stephout, which is famous. She wrote the first guide to nature-inclusive design, and really shows, like you can see, you look through the glasses of nature to the surroundings, and then you find the opportunities for wildlife there. And then she shows what side, what types of wall and what types of measures for birds in this case, or bats. And then those type of knowledge is translated into specific projects, like, for example, here, Vertical, which will be built in Amsterdam in the future. And also for, in this case, for climate, we built tools. This is also a Dutch one. There's an English one. I can probably send the link to that. But you can see the measures on the left: street trees, green roofs, all kinds of different measures. Then you can see the plan area in the middle. You can just put draw and make put the measures there, really within your plan area. And on the right, you can see all the impact that it will have on climate, on the cost, on the water quality, for example. And this is a tool, the adaptation support toolbox that we made in a European project, by the way, based upon more than 300 scientific publications. And this really helps to make different scenarios, spatial scenarios, and to figure out what is the best set of measures and to get our goals in terms of climate adaptation. And also, what will the cost be like? And can we have a different type of composition with the measures and then have perhaps a lower cost? And a similar one, that's what we built for health and green. It's also a Dutch one, but you can see the plan area in the middle as well, including several buildings which are in blue. And then I translated it in English for you. And we have different levels, like the building level, where we have different aspects of green that can support health, like recreation and sports, on a stationary level, so just at a certain specific place, or that you have a view, or cooling, all those different. And then on a parcel level, what we call a garden, then on the transport, and also on the whole plan area. And then here you have the different types of measures that you can choose and put in the area. You can find out on the level of a building or on the larger level if you really can make a contribution to the health. And if you have 100 points, that is the maximum contribution. And if you're less, you know that you could do a little bit more. So, yeah, to summarize, we have this large project, which is called the Successful Implementing Green City Development, where we collaborated with 25 partners, including 12 cities, and also the umbrella organizations for urban development, for urban planning, for landscaping, and many more, where we really try to have all those pilots, but also bring together all this knowledge. So I want to finish and say, let's make cities functionally green. And some recommendations for you is use the evidence there is on urban green benefits and all the conditions, especially also those conditions. Make sure within a municipality that you work together as you are a key party to make a city green. Collaborate with private parties, but tell them how to do and challenge them in the right way. If they are challenged, they can make it. But if they are not asked for, they probably will not do it. And also try to learn from each other and with living labs and with monitoring. So this was my story. I hope it was interesting and I'm looking forward to your questions.